You know who is good from Beyond the Arc? These two men. Welcoming two members of the Beyond the Arc podcast, CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder and CBS Sports HQ NBA analyst John Gonzalez. Final two playoff spots clinched. Start in the West. Pelicans beat the Kings for the sixth time this season. Bill, how'd they get it done this time?
Yeah, what a level of domination. I mean, a few things, and John has brought this up a lot on the pod over the last few months. This is a Pelicans team that's not just good on offense. They're really good on defense, and they shut down Sacramento's high-powered offense. And you noted, Akeem, they just could not score from beyond the three. I think they hit 26% of their three-pointers. That's a recipe to lose this kind of game. And give New Orleans credit. Brandon Ingram, after getting some of that rust off when he came back from injury toward the end of the regular season, played really, really well. And they used that defense really starting at the end of the second quarter to take hold of that game, who may be the sixth man of the year despite his injury. You add all that up, and it leads to what we saw tonight. And that was, despite the final score, pretty comfortable win for New Orleans.
Yeah, this is a good reminder of what the Pelicans can do, right? I was down on them after the last two games against the Lakers, and they didn't have Zion. They had lost 6 straight at home. But then, as you mentioned, Akeem, they were 5-0 against the Kings this season. Now you make it 6-0. Brandon Ingram, who didn't even close in the last game against the Lakers because he was rusty, he was coming off that injury, didn't look like himself, bench, super high energy guy. And it's just a really good reminder that the Pelicans, despite not having Zion, are a deep team. They're a good team. And it was just too much for the Kings tonight because the Kings aren't a deep team. They got a ton from Fox. They got a ton from Sabonis. They got a little dusting of Harrison Barnes. And then it wasn't much else. Against the Warriors, they shot the lights out. As you mentioned, they were awesome from beyond the arc. Nice one, by the way. But tonight, rough night from three. So just too much for the Kings. It was a good season for them. Disappointing end. But now the Pelicans are moving on for a reason.
All right, so the Pelicans will play the one-seeded Thunder in the first round. Zion Williamson dealing with the hamstring injury, not expected to play at all in this series. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Oklahoma City making its first playoff appearance in 4 years. The Thunder, for what it's worth, won 2 of the 3 regular season meetings against the Pelicans. Bill, how are you evaluating this matchup?
Tricky for me because John is the resident Thunder fan on the podcast. Even though he's a Sixers fan over his shoulder, look, the Thunder are probably going to win this series because you know the most important reality, and that's no Zion. So if Zion were playing, I would be so tempted to take, or at least consider the possibility of New Orleans in the series for all the reasons John just talked about. It's a really, really good and deep Pelicans team. But the Thunder were remarkable this year. They've got a guy that's going to finish second or third in MVP voting in SGA. They've got a top 7 offense and defense. They're the top seed in the Western Conference for a reason. So I think the Thunder are going to move on, but I think it's going to be a really hard-fought series. And to John's previous point in our previous conversation, this isn't your typical 8 seed. Even without Zion, this is going to be a scrappy team that plays great defense. If Ingram can play at the level we saw in this game and be Ingram, I mean, it could go 5, it could go 6, it could go 7. These could be close games. So I like the Thunder, but I do think that this is a more dangerous 8 seed than we're accustomed to over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Bills coming around to my way of thinking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're the #1 seed in the Western Conference for a reason. The West was loaded this year. And yes, I understand that there's skepticism about the Thunder because young teams traditionally do not perform well in the playoffs. This is the youngest team in the NBA right now. It's the youngest team in NBA history to win 55 games, but that's how good they are. I mean, SGA is a legitimate MVP candidate. He's not going to win it, but he's in the Bills' top 5 for a reason. Chet Holmgren has been a revelation as a rookie, really shores up that defense. Jalen Williams has been fantastic. You've got Lou Dort, who doesn't get a lot of praise, but is an excellent, excellent defender. Now, they struggle with size. They struggle on the board. So that could be somewhere where maybe, Jonas Valanciunas could give them some trouble potentially because they are a beefier team than Oklahoma City. I don't think it's going to go 6 or 7. I think maybe the Pelicans could win a game here. Without Zion, it's going to be really tough for them to win 2. Who knows? Maybe they win 2, but I would be shocked if this isn't the Thunder series. So, yeah, I'll take the Thunder in this one.
Oklahoma City minus 650 to win that series. Much bigger disparity in the 1 versus 8 in the East. No Butler, no problem. The Heat beat the Bulls, earned the 8th seed. Miami clinched the 8th seed last season, knocked out the Bucks, the Knicks, and Celtics on their way to the NBA Finals. This year, facing Boston in the first round, their series went 7 games last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. They won't have Jimmy Butler here. Fans in Miami chanting, "We want Boston." The Celtics are, get this, Bill, minus 8,000 to win the series. Do you think the Heat will even win a game?
Yeah, I do think, though. You know what? You say that, and the first thing I think, I know John's going to roll his eyes, and Akeem, you're not going to follow my lead, is I might put a little money on the Heat. I mean, a little. I mean, It's Eric Spoelstra. What are we talking about here? Look, the Celtics are the best team in the NBA on paper. Absolutely. I know that John is going to bring up in a second they have the third highest net rating in the history of the NBA. And that's all great. But you don't play the games on paper in the postseason. It is a different animal. There is a huge advantage, a coaching advantage for Eric Spoelstra in the Heat here. So while I feel like it's Heat in 5, and I know all the reasons John's going to correctly walk us through what the Celtics should have played and say, let's give a little respect to a Miami Heat team that is always markedly better. Even without Jimmy, I know there's no Jimmy when they get to the playoffs. Come on.
The Miami Heat deserve some respect, right? I mean, I didn't even think that they were going to beat the Bulls tonight. I saw Caruso was coming back. No Jimmy Butler. They looked really good. Kobe White was shooting the lights out in the last game against the Atlanta Hawks. And then it was like, oh, yeah, the Miami Heat reminded us that they are not the Atlanta Hawks. Every playoffs, they come along and they go, it doesn't matter who we have available. Of course, they'd like to have Jimmy Butler, but they are a team that is greater than the sum of its parts at all times. Now, that said, it's going to be a sweep for the Boston Celtics. My very smart co-host on Beyond the Arc just brought it up. They have the third best point differential per game in NBA history. The only two teams that had a better point differential in NBA history before these Boston Celtics were two of Jordan's Bulls. They're that good. They're 3-0 against the Heat this season. They have a hugely lopsided point differential. They are healthy. They have an MVP candidate in their own right, an all-NBA candidate in their own right in Jason Tatum. They are super deep 1 through 6, even beyond that. Look, the Heat, all credit to them for the Heat culture and trying, and they're going to push Boston as hard as they can. But ultimately, I would be shocked if this isn't a sweep. There's a reason why the number is so heavily in favor of the Celtics.
Minus 110 for a sweep, John.
Let's do it. How much money are we putting down?
Don't do it.
I'm not doing that. I think the Heat might get a game. I think they might get a game.
Yeah. You guys.
They might get a game. They might get a game. Appreciate you. And maybe they'll get a game 1 like they did last year. The 1 seed and the East and West bookend the schedule on Sunday. The Celtics host the Heat in the first game, 1 p.m. Eastern time, followed by Luka and the Mavs clashing with the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard questionable because of right knee inflammation. Then the Bucks take on the Pacers. Indiana beat Milwaukee 4 times in the regular season. The Pacers are favored to win that series. And the final game of the day takes us to OKC, the Thunder hosting the Pelicans.